All right, and the next fight up on the card is actually going to be another battle of a city kickboxing fighter, a city kickboxing standout. First two fights we break down, first two people from the city kickboxing gym in New Zealand. It's going to be the prelim headliner in the UFC's lightweight division between Brad Quake Riddell, who comes into the fight with a record of 10 victories and 3 defeats, going up against Renato Moicano, who comes back with a record of 16 victories, 5 defeats, and 1 no contest. The Riddell versus Moicano is a phenomenal contest. It's a great fight, and it's one of the best fights on the entire card. Truly and 100% without a doubt, it's one of the best fights on the card. And when it comes to breaking this down, we'll look at the stats first. You've got both men coming off a loss. Riddell, obviously, that TKO victory to Rafael Fiziev. A submission loss to Jalen Turner, and then prior to that, it was that TKO victory in that great fight against a former training partner, Rafael Fiziev. And Renato Moicano is coming off that loss to Rafael Dos Anjos on short notice at UFC 272. Stepped into the co-main event on short notice, no camp. Looked good later on in the fight. Seemed to find some success when it got into those later rounds, but early on was getting dominated, outstruck, outgrappled, etc., etc. But he did have his moments later on in the fight. You look at the height, and it's going to be 5'7", for Brad Riddell, and then 5'11" for Renato Moicano. That's going to be a 4-inch reach disadvantage for Riddell with that 4-inch height discrepancy between the two, with Moicano having that 4-inch height advantage. And then you look at the reach for the fight. You've got a 71-inch reach for Riddell to a 72-inch reach for Moicano. Even though it's only a 1-inch reach advantage for Moicano, I feel like Riddell uses his reach a little bit better when it comes to the striking exchanges on the feet, and mixes combinations up a little bit better between the two fighters. We obviously know that in this fight, there's going to be a real discrepancy in the technical striking on the side of Riddell and the grappling and jiu-jitsu side of Renato Moicano. If Moicano gets this fight to the ground, if he's able to take down Riddell, get in the top position, open up his hips in that reverse scarf, step over into mount, take the back of Riddell, it's probably going to be over. Like, that's how good Moicano is on the mat. Now, I know he wasn't really able to out-grapple RDA, but he did get his back early in that fight for a brief moment in time. And even though he did get taken down, got out-grappled, got out-wrestled, the longer the fight went on, Moicano's a great jiu-jitsu artist, and he's good on the feet as well. He's got a really good jab from orthodox. Both these guys are going to be fighting orthodox. He's got a really good jab, a really good straight right hand as well. He mixes up his combinations pretty decently, but a lot of the times Moicano's just like a 2-3 strike fighter. A 1 or 2 strike fighter. There's never really like 3, 4, 5, 6 punch combinations, especially at this point in his career. And we have seen that Moicano can be a little bit chinny. Now, I guess you could say the same about Riddell, even though he took some big shots from Fiziev. But when he fought Jalen Turner, it was like the first big shot that Turner landed. He hurt him, and then he grabbed his neck and was able to lock up that mounted guillotine. And the fight was over before it even got started. And now Riddell's sitting on a 2-fight losing skid inside the UFC after coming in to both of those fights having a record of 10-1. Moicano's obviously going to be the guy that's fought the better competition. But when it comes to the common opponents, they both have fights with Rafael Fiziev. Moicano fought Fiziev back at UFC 256, got knocked out in the first round with that beautiful left hook to the body, right straight up top, and then a left hook off the break, which knocked out Renato Moicano. Now, I know he protested the stoppage and said that he could have kept on going, but when he went to get back up, he just couldn't really get there. He was definitely out. His equilibrium was off. Even if he was out just on his way down to the floor, that was definitely a good stoppage. Riddell went back and forth with Rafael Fiziev until the third round, where he was able to time Riddell circling off to that rear side and catch him with a spinning wheel kick up against the cage, and then, hurt him and get the finish in that fight. But up until that point, it was very close on the numbers. I looked like Fiziev was more comfortable. It looked like he was definitely in the fight a little bit more. But based off the numbers, based off the statistics, like, Riddell was still in the fight. He was just a little bit more, tentative. He was a little more hesitant. I think it was the speed on the side of... I think it was definitely the speed on the side of Fiziev that was giving Riddell a lot of trouble, but he had some good success landing some combinations, multiple shot combinations, the right hand, the left hook, Really good jab. He was using his jab very effectively. Jab, right low kick, switch stance, straight left, right hook. Like, he was able to mix up his combinations, but he was just a little bit tentative. Moicano did good. He was able to land that jab. He landed the straight right to the body a few times against Fiziev, and then was able to come up top with the 1-2 down the center. Moicano's straight punches are always going to be effective for him. He's very good at using those long, rangy shots. And when you have that height advantage over Riddell that he does in this fight, 5'11 to 5'7, and then you have a 1-inch reach advantage. Having that height advantage is going to be a big weapon for Moicano on the feet because he's going to want to keep it at his distance. But Riddell's very good at using fakes and feints. He uses that little low kick feint to step in, change the angle, come in with a combination, might use a right low kick feint to switch into southpaw, right hook, straight left, step back, 1-2, left hook, right low kick, jab, left hook, right low kick, jab, right hand, left hook, right body kick, 1-2, right hook, left body kick from southpaw. He does switch stances pretty effectively. He's got good combinations, and his defense is pretty good all the way around as well, but he can get hit. But the same can be said for Renato Moicano. If we look at the significant strikes, Riddell lands 4.73 significant strikes per minute to 4.8 for Moicano, 53% significant strike accuracy rate on the side of Riddell to a 48% significant strike accuracy rate on the side of Moicano, 3.56 strikes absorbed per minute for Riddell, and then 4.07 absorbed per minute for Moicano. Defense overall, though, 52% defense rate for Riddell to 61% striking defense rate for Moicano. I really don't like that last defense stat that they give you on the UFC website. I feel like that's going to be inaccurate all the time, just going off of the other stats that are listed throughout the striking. But when you go to the grappling side, that's obviously where you're going to give the bigger advantage to Moicano, having that jiu-jitsu black belt and being that wizard that he is on the ground. 1.85 takedowns per 15-minute fight for Riddell, 1.7 on the side of Moicano. 37% takedown accuracy rate for Riddell, 48% takedown accuracy rate on the side of Renato Moicano. 62% takedown defense for Riddell. Like, he's got pretty decent takedown defense. He's gotten taken down before, but even if he gets taken down, he's good at using that whizzer and finding his way back up to the feet. He doesn't really settle for bottom position when he's on the floor, except for that point where he got hurt against Turner, but even that wasn't bottom position. He hurt him up against the cage, grabbed the neck, and then used it to roll back and get into the full mount to get the choke. And then 73% takedown defense for Moicano. So Moicano has better takedown accuracy and better takedown defense, and obviously better submission upside with 0.61 submission average per 15-minute fight. And you look at the odds for the fight, you have Riddell sitting at a plus 105, slight underdog to a minus 125 for Renato Moicano. And to be honest, like, I know that if this fight goes to the ground, Riddell's going to be in a lot of trouble. But Riddell isn't that easy to take down, and Moicano has very good takedowns from the body lock. Kind of like we talked about with Nick Negamedianu. Like, they're kind of similar in the way that they approach their takedowns. They're not single legs, they're not double legs. They're getting to the body lock inside the clinch and then looking to circle the opponent off and get the inside or the outside trip and then work from there. But sometimes he'll drop opponents and jump on them like he did against Cub Swanson. He dropped him with that jab. I believe that was at UFC 227, and then was able to jump on him, take the back, and get the rear naked choke. Similar situation with his last fight, or one of his last fights against Alexander Hernandez, where the fight was pretty close in the first round. It looked like Hernandez was outstriking him, landing the left body kick, switching stances. Moicano was there for a lot of the strikes, and he just really couldn't get going, and he was out techniquing him on the feet from basically the beginning of the fight until Moicano took over and eventually finished it. But he was able to time Hernandez stepping in on a shot, hit him with an uppercut, left hook, right hand, something like that, similar combination. And once he hurt him, he got him up against the cage. And then he eventually found a way to get him to the ground, take his back, and lock up a rear naked choke. Like, if Moicano hurts you, he's going to jump on you and he's going to look for the finish. The same can be said for Riddell. If Riddell hurts you on the feet, he's going to jump in and try to put you out, but he's going to be a little bit more technical in his approach. I know can get drawn into brawls. He got drawn into a brawl against Jamie Malarkey in his UFC debut, did get dropped. Looked pretty good against Mustafayev. looked really good against Dober. I mean, that was a war from start to finish. Almost got finished in that fight as well multiple times. Was able to resort to the wrestling, use it defensively to hide his head and avoid any potential shots that could have been a TKO on the side of Dober. Eventually got some takedowns in the fight later on. He's very good at reactive takedowns. I think Riddell has really sneaky timing when it comes to the takedowns in his MMA game. His reactive wrestling is very good, and it's something that I don't think a lot of people talk about because of how technical and sharp he is when it comes to the striking on the feet. I think that if Moicano gets to a dominant position on the floor, whether it's half guard, whether it's full mount, if it's Riddell giving up his back, then I definitely think Moicano can take the back and get the submission. But I do have to look into the idea that Moicano is good at maybe 1 or 2 strikes at a time. He will, bum rush you with 3, 4, 5, 6 punch combos, but a lot of the time that's when he's already got you hurt and he knows that you're, primed for the picking. Riddell is the better counter striker, and we saw Moicano have trouble against the counter striker in Fiziev, where once he started letting that speed and power go, even though Moicano did well with some shots to the body and did land some shots up top to the head, the minute Fiziev got the timing down, he was able to catch Moicano and knock him out. When you look at Riddell and Fiziev, I know that they were former training partners, so the fight had a little bit different of a dynamic, but Riddell and Fiziev went back and forth, the fakes and feints, the false starts, the stutter steps, the angle changes, constantly countering shots, coming back, countering, looking for your perfect opening, countering back, right hand, left hook, right low kick, double jab, left hook, right hand, left low kick, stuff like that, double jab, right hand, switch stance, left body kick. They mixed it up very well, and it was a very technical and sharp battle. And if Riddell can do that against Fiziev, even though it was a former training partner, I think he can pick apart Moicano on the feet. I really, really do. Even though he's at that huge height disadvantage, I feel like Riddell knows how to close the distance, and he's so good at finding his opportunity to land those shots on the feet that he's going to be able to land on the chin of Renato Moicano. And I know both guys have had some chin issues, but I think Moicano's chin is a little bit worse. He's got good durability if you don't jump on him and finish him, but he's been cracked on the chin. He's been finished. He's been knocked out. As Riddell has, the fight against Turner really surprised me. I was very high on him going into that fight against Jalen Turner, and Turner shut me up really quickly, and I was very surprised by that. But I think this is the fight where we see Riddell get back on track. I think that Moicano does not have the technical ability to hurt Riddell on the feet. If he does hurt him, though, I would say that the shot he's probably going to hurt him with is that quick sit rear uppercut to the left hook. He's very good with that straight right hand to the body, the straight right up top. But his best shot is timing an opponent coming in, trying to crash the pocket, getting off on that rear side angle and landing that uppercut up the middle. It's almost like if you fight in boxing, you use that shoulder roll or Philly shell where they'll catch it on the shoulder, quick sit, and then boom, come back with the rear uppercut, the left hook, and the right hand. Moicano's very good at landing that uppercut up the middle, and since Riddell is at that huge height disadvantage, he's going to be lower to the ground. He's going to be there for those uppercuts up the middle, the front kicks, the uppercuts, the knees. I think that uppercut from Moicano can cause Riddell some issues, but he's so good with the fakes and feints and setting things up and changing the angles and using the angle steps, using the L steps, using the little switch 45 where he'll briefly switch from orthodox to southpaw and then he'll switch back to orthodox to square your hips up and then come in with the combinations. I think Riddell is just way better in terms of his striking on the feet, and I think it's going to be hard for Moicano to close the distance. And even though he's got that huge height advantage, his reach is very similar to Riddell, and I think Riddell is going to be able to use that distance better and more effectively than Moicano is against Riddell, because I think once Riddell really starts letting it go, once he's able to land that rear side right hand left hook counter, he's very good at getting off to that rear side, finding that angle, and then coming over the top with the right hand and the left hook. You saw him use it against Drew Dober. He used it against Fiziev at certain points, and he's very reactive, good timing, but I don't think he's going to come into this fight as tentative as he did in the fight with Fiziev. I think he's going to come in refreshed, come in renewed, and we're going to see a really standout performance here from Riddell. I can see why people are siding with the side of Moicano because he's a pretty good striker. Like, he has technical striking and his jiu-jitsu is good, but Riddell is not the easiest guy to take down. I definitely think if Moicano gets to the top position, it's going to be a world of trouble for Riddell, but he is good defensively off of his back as well. Like, I know he got submitted by Turner, but he was hurt so bad before that he didn't really have a chance to defend that much. And in his other fights, he got taken down, but he was able to get back up to his feet. And he has good reactive takedowns of his own. And if he can time some of those reactive takedowns on Moicano, as Moicano tries to step in with his strikes, I think he can really kind of discourage Moicano from getting those takedowns and using the top position, because he can take down Moicano in and of his own right. The wrestling of Riddell is being heavily overlooked. It's been overlooked a lot in his career, and I have to side with Quake. Brad Quake Riddell to get the victory here over Renato Moicano. I'm going to say that he gets a finish here. I think the chin of Moicano has been suspect. I think the chin of Riddell is suspect in his own right, but I definitely think Moicano's taken more damage, especially in that last fight against RDA. Even though it was on short notice, man, he took a beating in that fight. Showed heart, was able to come back in multiple aspects and hurt RDA as well. But I still think the technical striking of Riddell, his ability to use fakes and feints, his ability to close the distance, and with Moicano being that tall, upright fighter who doesn't use that much head movement, I think he's going to be there for the left hook of Riddell. He's going to be there for the right hand, and he's going to be there for the combinations. And eventually, those combinations are going to shut the lights out on Renato Moicano. So my pick is going to be. Sorry, I talk so fast sometimes. It's going to be Brad Quake Riddell to defeat Renato Moicano via a second round TKO finish. I could see a decision, but I'm going to go with the side of Riddell, and I actually think he's a good underdog play for the week. Like I said, I don't blame you if you're on the side of Moicano. I definitely can see your reasoning behind that, but I'm going to go with Riddell to get back on track here and snap that 2-fight losing skid. And at plus 105, you're kind of begging me to play Riddell this weekend. I really like Riddell. It's not the most confident pick I have on the card, but I do like playing Riddell in your bets this weekend as a plus 105 underdog. Definitely on the money line. You're giving me a slight underdog. I'm going to take it. Whether better than picking, fight goes the distance, fight doesn't, or picking a winning method. I think that Riddell is a very solid underdog play going into UFC 281. But a second round TKO finish for Riddell. His striking is just too much. His timing, his adjustments, it's going to be too much for Moicano. And I think it's going to be a lot harder for Moicano to get into clinch range and take down Riddell than people are giving Riddell credit for in this fight.